We're live. Oh dear. Okay. Let's set up. Sorry about all the noise in the background. My whole life is fixing things, so put over here. Gonna go on my other phone here and see what we're at. Yeah. I'm back. Actually, I'm in the process of tearing this one down. I'm not going to do it tonight, but because I took another one apart and I got the other one running, and there's three of them. Anyway, I'm going to put this away for the moment. Of course, away is a loose word. So the plan tonight is to do some porting. Hey, Larry. Who else is here? And sorry for the noise in the background. My life is fixing stuff. So I was fixing my washing machine, and I bought the wrong part, apparently. Put it all back together, and it still didn't work. And I said, oh, come on. So I'm going to do a little setup here, and we're going to get ready to do a little grinding. And I don't know how much of it we'll be able to show, but we can try, can't we? Hey, Brian. Hey, Eric. From Ohio. All right. 8 people already. That's cool. I'm just kind of setting up here. I was doing other things before this. Just gotta take everything else down here effectively. That goes there. Too much to do today. Hey, Tim. Multi-Chainsaw 123. Who are you? What's your name, sir? Tim's always here, so we ignore him. Dremel tool time. Yeah, well. Got the Dremel. I got the Marathon here. We'll be working with both. Multi-Chainsaw, your name is Doug. Howdy, Doug. Welcome aboard. Doug, I want you to be careful and not mistake this particular channel for anything super interesting. So if you're looking to go to sleep, then you are in the right place. Pop-up piston, no. No, I don't think so. You know, I haven't found that I need it with a 394. You certainly can do it, but I'm not sure if there's much point. So, because, you know, you get to, with what I do, you get to like 190 pounds anyway. Now, this cylinder is not quite as nice as some, but, you know, we're still going to get to like probably 185 on this without too much trouble. And I'm not convinced you need a whole lot more. You know, anywhere around 200 with a 394 is going to be really potent. Okay. So you guys can see that, and forgive the noise in the background, I was fixing my washing machine and we had to make sure that it works, and I think it works. Yeah, 190 is pretty good with literally just setting squish properly and a base gasket delete. So on this one, in case you guys didn't see, I needed to deck the case not to really set squish, but to make sure the case was even. So I did that, and let's get the shop vac going. A little closer, give me a little more room. And before I do that, I'm just gonna put away a few more things while we're waiting for people here. So hot tip when you're using a bearing puller, make sure the bearing is super clean before you pull it off, because if there's any little chips in there, you wreck a crank. Did that today. Let's see here, let me... LA versus Brewers, you can start. I'm here. Good. Filter changer. I'm just putting stuff away just to get a few things out of my way, and then we will get started. Come on. Oh, this tightened. Holy crap, 15 people here? All to watch me bum through a port. Just so everybody knows, there are some very sophisticated ways to do port work. Mine is a little more quick and dirty because it gets you like 90% there. Heck, I'm happy if it gets me halfway there. If I'm halfway towards a professional job, and professional I regard like Mastermind and Tree Monkey, and there's a bunch of other guys that really seem to know what they're doing. If I'm halfway to that level, I'm really, really happy. Oh, I see. This is off center anyway. Good. Now my table's more stable. 16 people. Jeez. Again, please do not mistake this for anything that is going to be exciting. Alright, so here's our cylinder. And I don't like to port good cylinders. I just don't like to do it. I don't like to port brand new cylinders. One convenient thing about the cylinders that have been used is they actually have some lines in them, some, smudge marks effectively that show you where the extent of the pistons are. So let's see if we can see this. So now it's like automatically pointing out where you can grind to. Can you see this? There's a line right here. Do dentists own their own tools or do they stay with the practice? It depends on the dentist. If you own the practice, I mean, I'm sure technically I own some of the tools there, but for the most part, whoever owns the practice would buy the equipment, and those are kind of so. Hygienists traditionally have their own instruments. So they come and go with them. So I have not met very many hygienists that today have their own instruments. Most expect to have some at the practice, but... Hey, David. Yeah, you can see the line. Okay, good. So now we know basically where we can grind to as an extent on the exhaust side and on the intake side. Now, all of that's a little bit tricky, but I usually go maybe 2 millimeters shy of the line on the exhaust side. On the intake, there's not much room to grind for width-wise. So we'll adjust for timing and probably call it a day there. On the intake, so here's how I look at things. On the intake, I want the intake because you want a nice crisp opening. And on the exhaust, don't know what you can see and what you can't. On the exhaust, you notice that it's rounded. And you do want to maintain that round, but it's a little bit too concave for me. If you put a good enough bevel on here, you don't have to worry about the concave. You can make the exhaust floor a little bit flatter, or roof, or I forget. You can, the terms, anyway, this part of the exhaust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten the exhaust a little bit, depending on where I want my numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a piston in here. We're going to get some numbers, and then we're going to play around with all that. Go till you see light, then patch with JB Weld. Yeah, good. I've never gone through. I've never ground through. I'm just not that aggressive. Okay. Goop here. Let's see, how's the angle here? Let's try to adjust the angle a little bit. That's a little better. Okay, so that was just plumber's putty that I have on here to make sure nothing goes down in while I'm machining this on the Bridgeport. Peanuts. No, I put Just Kleenex is in there. And I want to block it as much as possible. That way I'm pulling stuff out and hopefully the vacuum here is catching stuff and all that jazz. Okay. So this is a much nicer surface. It's flat. We're good. 20 people. Jeepers. Who's here? 20 people. Let's find a piston. I gotta pull all this stuff out. Just so everybody knows, I've said this before, this is not a cooking show, so I don't necessarily have everything prepared before we try to do any baking. Going to go from this side, it's easier for me. This happens to be a OEM piston. It's a little worn, but why not use it? So first we want to basically make sure our squish is good. So as soon as we determine that we've got squish where we want it, then we can fiddle with all the port work. Just got to make sure there's nothing on the base of the cylinder here. Shine this up a little bit. Now we'll get a nice accurate squish reading. If we need to adjust the squish, if it's too tight, then I got sandpaper, which we'll play with. And I'll show you guys how I do that. How much off the crankcase? Like 10 thousandths. Didn't take much. Go. Make sure it sits flat, no rock. Ah. There's a rock. That you have to pay attention to. So the rock is basically right here, and if you want to be sure, take a Sharpie and mark this up. And let's see if those areas get marked. Oh yeah. So that's easy to do. We just take a grinder and done. This really doesn't affect anything, just clearance, basically. See if that helps. No more rock now. Maybe just a hair more. I can see the marks inside the case where it's hitting. Hey, Ken. Long time no see. More rock. Okay. Put a couple of cylinder head bolts on here. And this head is going to be on and off a bit. So up and down. We don't have a head slapper. That's good. What I don't have offhand is my Woodruff key. Although I did see one around here somewhere. Oh, there is a key in there already. Okay, good. Makes my life easier. I just like to use the flywheel to check squish, that's all. I have a sneaky suspicion it is going to be a little on the tighter side, so I'll use the smaller solder. This is 030 solder. I bring it just up just shy of top dead center, go over the piston pin basically, and now we can measure that. Just under 15 thousandths. 13 thousandths, a little tight. 13 thousandths. So we have a bit of a dilemma there then. Do I try to widen that much, 7 thousandths? Or do I add a thin gasket? Yep, 13, 14 thousandths on the other side. So that's kind of tight. If I added a 10 thousandths gasket, we'd have it made in the shade. Oh, but I don't have a 10 thousandths gasket. All right. Stop fiddling around. So for the purposes of porting here, the I did that on there for a second. For the purposes of porting, 7 thousandths really isn't going to make a hoot difference. What do I want to do next? Just thinking. Do I want to get numbers? Should we get numbers? Or should I work on that squish? Let's get numbers. I have cabers, Larry. How deep were the seal surface nicks? They were deep. Deep enough to be a line, and I can't machine it out. Yeah, it'd be nice to find a 6 thou gasket. You know, you could use Coke can, that's like 4 thousandths. So that'll get you up to 17, which is a little tight to be running with a 394. So you can measure squish without the head gasket, with the gasket, whatever you want to do. Just be consistent about the measurement. If you're going to run a gasket, measure it with the gasket. That makes sense. It's probably most accurate if you're going for ultra accuracy to have no gasket. That's my thought on that. So what do I want? I want to do, let's do some numbers. Right now it's tight. We don't have a head slapper. So everybody can see my wheel here. It literally is just a washer. I forget where I got that. Some air fittings. Nothing exciting. So I literally have an air fitting that's tapped. I think actually 1/8 inch NPT comes close to M10, and for this purposes does work. So for this, what I'll do is take this down, take this and put this on now, and we're just going to get some initial numbers, because if I port using this squish, it's just not going to matter. Okay, let's get. So this is a die holder, but it's alloy, and it's not going to hurt the piston. So I use it as a piston stop when I'm doing this. So I crank this down pretty good on the crank. And then what I'll do, as close to what I think is top dead center visually. And now what I'll do, draw a couple of lines. Again, I'm not going for ultra precision here, but I want to be pretty good. So I draw a couple of lines. This is just so I can scope this visually. And then I'll actually move that more or less. Then I'll move this. Hold the piston at top dead center and move your wheel sort of close. So then you back it off a bit, put your piston stop in, and this is basically somewhere at an arbitrary point. So just looking, that says 32. So I go all the way around to where it stops. That's like 62. So I gotta split the difference. 32 is 30, so 15, 5, 10, 15. And then I can crank this down a little bit. So all you're trying to do is balance it on that point. And then I'll bring it back around. So that's like 50-ish. Oh shoot, that's like nearly right on, 50. So bring it back around, and it stops at your arbitrary point. 50. 50. Let me look for a little more accuracy. That's pretty close to 50. That's more like 48. So you just move the wheel to compensate. Not much. Tighten it up just a little bit more. 48, 49. 49. That's about as close in balance as I'm going to get it. Everybody understand what I just did there? Yeah, Larry, I actually do. I haven't been, but I'm sure I can get. I've never really desperately needed different thickness gaskets and whatnot, but certainly right now, you know, 6 thou paper would be really nice. Okay, so we've got it balanced. Now we can take that out. Put that away for the moment. Put all these wrenches away. Now we can look visually in the exhaust port, and what I'll often do is stick a light in the spark plug hole. And right where it cracks is where you have your number. So we count from top dead center 90, 100. That's like 104, 105. Now what you can do, again, to check your balance, is go to the other side, of top dead center, and it should be the same number. $90, 100, 105, 105, 106. So somewhere around the 105, 106, yeah, 105 is probably about right. So that's a little bit much. I'd rather, on this saw, somewhere closer to 100. So we do have some grinding to do. Let's look at the intake here. What the heck? That's the exhaust. Let's look at the intake. So right where it closes, I'm going to guess 75. Let's see. Yeah, 78 actually, which is pretty good. So I really don't need to adjust that much. But you can see, if you go to the edges, let me get a new bulb battery for the flashlight here. If you go to the edges of, so the intake is now basically fully open, but it's been a number of degrees of opening here. So it goes from there to here. So there's like 3, 4, maybe 5 degrees of opening there between when it goes from cracked to fully open as far as width goes. So we can flatten that to basically be as flat as possible. Everybody's got a few of those laying around. Yeah, it'd be nice to have one of those, 2 of those, 5 of those, 100 of those laying around. Okay, so I don't need to do that much to those. Let's... thinking. Let's see how we can get the exhaust correct first, because that's pretty easy to do. So get an old ring. Don't be like David, don't break it. Now what you want to do is you want to move this to bottom dead center. the ring in. And slide this down. Put your bolts back. This took me a little while conceptually to get. So if anybody is not quite with me, that's okay. If I used a couple of pieces of a $100 bill, the price of the saw would have to go up at least a little bit, right? Okay, so now what you do is you figure out where where you want it. So let's say I want it at 100. I mark it at, I put my finger there so I don't lose it, and I bring it up. And I'm going to do this here. Bring this all the way up to right to where you want it. I'm going to bring it just shy of 100, so maybe like 101. Back it off to bottom dead center. Now you pull the head off. I don't mind the price of the saw going up, you know. Who would mind that? So now we have a ring. There we go. So now we have a ring in there exactly where we want it to be. And you can see the difference between 105 and 101 is not that far. 2 millimeters, maybe? Not much. So now what we do is, because we're going to be making chips, take our crankcase and put it somewhere else. Try not to mess up the wheel when you're moving it around. So in here you can see that the concavity indeed is significant. So now we get a nice fresh Sharpie. Okay. Go in there with the Sharpie and draw right on the ring. Nice and wide. Let that dry for a minute, otherwise it smears. But now you know you can grind effectively right to the extent of the black. Ring comes out. A little bit of smear, but I can still see the line. There we go. There's my line. And the line, remember the line's flat according to the ring, so you're not going to fully grind the line all the way, but in the center you go right down to where it is, and then you can make concavities on either side, and that way you have a nice smooth transition for the rings. So let's do some grinding. I do set up shop vac right here. That way any chips, they tend to go in there. And what am I going to use for grinding? I guess we can use the Marathon for the moment. Yeah, we're going to open the exhaust port a little bit earlier, and it's going to be a little bit wider, and it's going to be a little flatter, which means it's a little more crisp, the opening. The flatter the exhaust, the more pop, but the more likely you are to hook a ring. So you have to be careful with all that. Gonna make some noise here, guys. But I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm going slow, David. Gotta go easy. This stuff takes hours. It's a long, long time to get it right. I like to get rid of all the carbon, but what I don't want to do, I don't want to touch the floor here, or that's the exhaust roof, whatever we're going to call it. Don't want to touch that. There's really no need. And I don't really widen this a whole lot. I just go in there and clean it up, make sure it's nice and even. You can hog this out as much as you want to. I think this will have fine pop without hogging it out too much. Again, you can square your edges. Make sure your transitions are smooth. I'm looking to make sure there's no corners. You don't want your grinding head going around the corner. Okay. How fine is the bit? This is just a regular double cut carbide. This bit is not fine at all. It's just a regular double cut carbide off of eBay. And this is the Marathon Lab handpiece. It's like 90 bucks. It's pretty cheap. I don't typically go through exhaust. I can see if you're doing a transfer, you might go through, but on exhaust, I don't go that far. I don't go that crazy. There are a lot of guys that do. It's not me. Well, let me show you how I do some polishing. With the bits bending, yeah, if I drop them. I've dropped plenty on the floor and they bend. Regular old 50 grit. Now in the intake, I'm not going to do as much polishing. Just don't need to. But on the exhaust, yeah, you give it a good shine. At least I do. I know that there's all kinds of debates on that, but so this is literally a 3-inch drywall screw that I put a slice down the middle of, and it holds a piece of sandpaper. Double up the sandpaper to start. And you run it slow. You don't run it fast. Then what you do is take a little bit of the sandpaper off, warm, and then you go back in. You could basically leave this wherever you want, but want a little more shine, we can do a little more shine. Want a little more shine? Fine. Take it to a 220. I do use the drums. Just not here. David, how shiny do you want this? You want 600? We'll do 600. I don't see why, but okay. Back to 50 for a second. now I can take it back to 220. And the paper does fall off occasionally. That's plenty shiny for me, but if we want to take it to 600, we'll take it to 600. Don't know how much of this I've ever used. Had this since college. I think. We still on, guys? Everything good? See, a lot of guys say the smoother the exhaust, the better. But I don't know if we really have proof on that. More superstition. Whatever. having trouble getting this stuff to stay on. I don't know why this keeps coming off. That's really annoying. How's that look, guys? Let's see if we can. Can you guys see it? Now what we can do is actually take the ring, put it back in there, and check for flat again. Okay, so on this side, I undercut it just a little bit. So I need to grind just a little bit more. But this side looks great. That's even now. Back to my 220 for a second. Go back to 600. Hey, Bob. Do the ring again. Check and see how I did. Yeah, that's about as even as we're going to get. Very nice. For tonight, because I'm not going to... 9:30 already. For tonight, instead of going after the intake and the exhaust, or the intake and the transfers, let me see if I can sandpaper the squish band just a little bit to get our squish a little closer to where we need it to be. If I can show you guys how I do that, I think we've accomplished enough for tonight, and then tomorrow sometime, if I have time, we'll pick up. Fortunately, I have two of these that are ready to go. I just take and JB weld some sandpaper on top of a 394 piston. It's crude, but it does work to get rid of that stupid lip in there. You certainly want the sandpaper to the edge, but you also don't want to scratch the cylinder itself. You don't want to scratch the sidewalls. So yeah, I've tried Super 77. Doesn't work. JB Quick Weld is much faster, much better hold. Do I have a piston? Okay, so wrist pin goes in. WD-40 like crazy. Impact. Gotta have plenty of lube in here. Go for a few seconds. Stuck. David. Never had one get stuck before. That's kind of interesting. Do you think it took off material? I do. So now what I'd like to do is I like to hit this with brake cleaner. And then a little brake cleaner inside of here too. This is 50 fit, sorry, this is 50 grit. Lube it back up. Now, is this an ideal way to do this? Obviously not. I do believe that cutting this with a boring bar is probably the best way to do it. But if you only need a few thousandths of clearance of opening, then I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it this way. Let me get some Kleenexes. Hang on a second. Let me put it another way. If you consider yourself a pro porter, this is not the way to do it. And there's really no good way to figure out how much you actually took off without doing the old guess and check method. Yeah, this is a bit on the redneck side of port work. What I need to do, I need a new piece of sandpaper on here. This is an 066, so that doesn't work. But I definitely need a new piece of sandpaper on there, and I forget whether I had another one of these or not. Let's look. This one's not quite as worn, so we'll do this one. But ideally I need a couple of fresh pieces of sandpaper on these, so I can set those up and get those going. And I do. Yeah, it's possible, but I would to use lapping compound, but I would be really wary of getting any of buggering the plating anywhere else on the cylinder. Yeah, it's possible, but I would use lapping compound, but I would be really wary of getting any of buggering the plating anywhere else on the cylinder. Should we measure it now, just the heck of it? Squish band's pretty flat now. Looks good. Too much stuff on the bench now. So we started around 13. Let's see where this is now. Watch, it'll go down. $19,000s? $20, $19, somewhere in there. See if the other side's any tighter. $19. To answer the question, this is a clutch tool that I cut. I did cut myself out of a socket. This was a 13/16 socket. So this is a clutch tool that I use for, I forget which saw. It might have been the 350. But it's on a 1/2-inch drive, and it works really well. So I think, I mean, if that's correct, 19,000. So you want to double? I'm going to double check that, because normally I don't quite cut away that much with that little work. Yeah, right on 19 or 20, somewhere in there. $20. There's no $100 slipped under here. There's a lot of money in here, but there's no $100 slipped into here. It was a 350 video because I built one when you showed it in your. Yeah, the this has been real handy. Oh, Leonard's back. Yeah, by the time we get any 1184 on here, that's going to be perfect for squish. Just no problem at all. That's awesome. I think I'm going to call it a night, guys, because that looks pretty good. I got to obviously do the transfers and the intake. Questions, comments, anything else before I sign off for the night and see you tomorrow sometime? I was originally fixing this for myself, but I'm open to offers. We can auction this off if you want right now. A lot of work going to go into it. Just got on, Leonard. Sorry, I'm cooked, man. $100. There you go. You know that the ignition coil that's going to go on here is going to be almost that, right? Well, let's ask David, because David just looked at a 394 in a pawn shop, if I remember right, and they wanted too much money for it. So what do you guys think this is worth? David Shively. Yeah, I don't think it's going to bring the 900 number. The cylinder just isn't nice enough for that. The rest of the stuff that's going on here is not going to be that nice, except for the fact it's going to have a brand new ignition coil. That we know. Brand new cabers. Yeah, 750 is probably not unreasonable. Might be even a little on the high side, but 750 is not unreasonable. If it runs good, if it runs like crap, then it ain't gonna be worth that. If you want a 395 brand new with warranty, you're looking at $1,200. I have a 394 that I built a little while ago that I want $1,000 for. But that's the 394 is beautiful. It's really, really nice. It's got an OEM flywheel that's brand new on it. New ignition coil, new tank, new this, new top covers, new handle, new this, new that. So I'm never going to get $1,000 for the thing. Nobody's going to pay me $1,000 for it, but I'm just going to hold on to it because it's beautiful. So something like this that's been custom worked over. Yeah, probably the 750 isn't too bad. 500 might be a little bit light. I mean, 500 would be easy to get, I think, but if anybody, David, if you want it, you can direct me as to what you want me to do with it. But if there's anybody else that's interested, obviously let me know. I don't know what everybody's level of interest is, so if you guys want it, then if somebody's serious and they want it, then we'll try to work it up to their specs. Am I going to lighten up the flywheel? Well, actually, yes, but only because the flywheel that I have is missing a fin. So I'm going to, this is broken off, so I'm going to break off this fin, the corresponding fin over here. So I wouldn't do that normally, but the flywheels are not easy to come by for $394. So if you try to go buy one of these, best of luck. So this one still works fine. I would definitely just break that off and have it be even, more or less. This will be high top for anybody that likes high top. I happen to have a high top filter neck here, so that's cool. I don't really care high top, low top, me personally, but a lot of people like high top. I have a highway muffler here, which I can leave stock or modify. Me personally, I leave them stock, but that's just me. So it'll be fairly complete when it's done. So David, if you're serious, just let me know. If anybody else is more serious, they can let me know. And other than that, I think I'm going to call it a night. For those that don't know, t-shirts, let me know if you need a t-shirt. Yes, Ken and Tim, you're on the list, don't worry. Yeah, the muffler does have a spark screen. The highway mufflers do come with spark screens. So, okay. Good night, guys. Thanks, and we'll pick this up probably tomorrow. Do a little more porting. So, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.